Sirens by J. Francis. Chapter 3. Music makes the room shudder at 4:45. Anthony gave up an alarm clock sometime around age 8. The minimalist decor sets a perfect backdrop for his daily pattern. Clocks just don't work for me, and they're bullshit anyway, he often tells his one-night stands forced to endure the hammering of consciousness at such an early hour. I don't want to wake, giving myself plenty of excuses for another slap at the snooze button. I need to just fucking do it, like a sprinter leaving the blocks. He doesn't wait to get to full speed. He's like, blah, off and going. I don't want a heartless fucking beep. I want a reason, an emotion, a call to arms. The music is a mix between rap and metal, a hybrid that took all the energy and anger and put it into a driving beat. It's the rhythm that does it. It first finds its way into the timing of the body, then slips into high gear before one even knows it's happening. Anthony thinks it's a music for those who won't be stopped, stepping back into the primitive, walking through the door into the primordial soup in which our individual cells once swam, and slamming the door with a "fuck you" yelled at the top of your lungs. Like an unspoken Machiavellian mantra. I will do it. I will defend my success. I will smile to your face and rip the heart from your chest if it serves my purpose. It prepares me for the jungle across 93rd. I leave this building like a hunter and walk the streets cleverly disguised in an expensive suit, tracking those not yet captured. Another day to be taken and shaken for all it's worth. Anthony walks like a dinosaur among men, dominant but anachronistic. Sitting elevated, some of the people which stick out to Jacob are those who move with a unique manner and individual rhythm, like Anthony. Anthony is a man in his late 30s who was born from the early darkness of 90th, just in time to get the first or second paper in the morning. He looks familiar to Jacob, as he would to most. He is a piece of American scenery, recognizable from his sharp decisiveness. He walks into view with visible purpose. His walk is a bit more leisurely, possibly because he woke early enough to plan his stress out before others' work days begin. If knowing his past is important, the word-hungry therapist would pontificate. Anthony isn't from a broken home. He's from a shattered childhood. Broken is a word that makes the incredibly high rates of childhood trauma easier to take. Rich families become broken and fly kids back and forth between busy parents. Poor families become nothing but people living together, trying to make it. There are worse things that could happen, but pain is relative. Separation is not. Anthony made it through college with little effort and decided on business because he knew there were jobs out there and it matched his strengths. I have no direction but up, he once told his mother. I'm going to get as far as I can and then pop my head up and see where I've ended up. If that doesn't work, then I'll know I should have taken a left turn at Albuquerque and head back. He was 11. Just after 9 o'clock now, and Jacob was already waxing philosophical. His thoughts were equal parts unequivocal truth and a despair he didn't know he had. It would be up to the future to decide which was which. The view reminded him of the homogeneity of the area. He paced back and forth inside his mind. He tried to merge all the impressions of the world into one underlying principle. It was driving him mad. This fucking city, as golden as it is diseased. The point where the two ends of the spectrum wrap around and become one. The greatness and the despair side by side. How interesting to both relish and fear a landscape. A city that makes us feel exalted and simultaneously entrenched. Jacob loved the city and had never thought to leave. But when you're working to find inspiration for a grace-saving way of life, Jacob feared the city was no place to be. From my vantage point, I see things in generalities. But universals are general, right? I want to find the link, the nexus between what we are and what we could be. Fuck. Why can't I make any ground? Analyzing and synthesizing? 3 millennium of insight, and I can't separate the wheat from the chaff. This really is a lifetime's work, and maybe one I'm not capable of. Jacob actually saw very little. Some mornings he wavered from his mission, hoping he hadn't become stagnant. I speak about people down there on the street like I know them, but I don't. They're probably no different from me. I'm not special. You were not special. You, citizens of the future, hearing my thoughts through the conduit of time? He was glancing up now, as if the future was simply 2 floors above. Oh God, I see the space-suited men from here. You are not special, he repeats. Even if you're on your way to Mars. Once you learn this, then progress can be made. You hear me? The days here play out just as they do in Idaho or California, or your space-age condo. Jacob now dictated to an imaginary secretary a memo for the future. To all future Earthmen, he began. I am a cutout of 1,000,000 men nationwide, so no name is necessary. I have an apartment in what you might call the cities of the ground. I've got the TV on all day long. I can't ever turn it off. I'm scared to be alone forever, and I wonder how many others living in isolation can't find each other. I'm in love with a girl, a commoner. She is my obsession, the pedestal girl we all have. She works below me 5 hours a day. Sometimes those we place on a pedestal fall and crack into normality from the weight of their perfect burden. Sometimes, just sometimes, they find someone to support them and they thrive. The problems on my block are no different from those faced virtually everywhere. Their form may have been mangled by the 21st century to an extent that makes them seem almost unique, but I trust they are alive and well in even the most remote areas, in someone else's past, in my future, and in your present. And so I urge you to give up the ghost, as they say. Suck it in and let it roll around your tongue for a while before swallowing it down. You are me, and I am just someone else who also once thought they were someone. The open, enlightened mind is still the same. It never evolved because there was no adaptive advantage. The lonely mind still tangles with ethics, hand jobs, the metaphysical nature of morality, conservation of energy, social hierarchies, hemorrhoids, the paradoxical relationship between food production and hunger, the search for the soul, and overpriced footwear. So, my advice for you on these everlasting questions is go barefoot. That is all. Good luck. Back from the future, Jacob slumps into the past. A gold-rimmed picture frame above his bookshelf ensures his grandparents always stare at him. When I was 5 or 6 and too respectful to run away, my great-grandfather would speak to me about the first economic depression. I think it was in the 1930s, and how it affected his family. He would stand up and speak down to me like he was handing me the key to the universe. I'm not sure if he was helping me cope with my own life's inconveniences, or merely recounting the little one he could still remember. At the time, I remember giving him the utmost acknowledgement for the pains he had suffered. Looking back, however, I wished he would taught me something else. It wasn't the job loss which really made those times bad. It was the same choking void that is felt now, made worse by empty cabinets. He's probably in the future now, my grandpa, reading my letter and thinking his grandson's just a 20th century fool. He's hungry again, and thinking he would be all right if he could just get something to eat. So often, we attribute our last breath to a situation of our liking. To die by our arch enemy's hand is poetic. To succumb to anything but ourselves is acceptable. Surely, eating ourselves to death places the food at fault. It's not our polluted air, it's cancer. This is the headline in our mind. Study warns, staying home. We need something that can be agreed upon, a foe to ambush and wrest our war effort. It's not a battle for resources, it's a fight for our God. That makes it more like a game. We've stacked the deck, and it's Professor Plum in the ballroom with the jihad, Mrs. Peacock in the lavatory, standing knee-deep in the urinal with a list of sanctions. This helps to cover up the desperation. The desperation, that which is almost ubiquitous now, the rotten core of the new man that resides both on the surface and as far beneath as the soul. I see them both. On the surface, it's disgustingly wretched and evokes tears from other animals. In our soul, it eats us from the inside. Jacob can feel his own soul being tugged on, made rotten by his own thoughts. Racing from birth to death, I tell you. This isn't a revelation, it's everywhere. It's lurking in my closet when I wake, and handed out between the classifieds and personals in M's first morning paper. Jacob was on his way home now, becoming clearer by the moment. There may be hope, he thought. I heard it's coming.